Hey everyone, I'm the Canadian Lad, and today I'm gonna break down the first official teaser of Fantastic Four First Steps at 0.2 Febix speed and show you some amazing hidden details and Easter eggs. This is gonna be the very last movie before Avengers Doomsday, so you can already tell that the movie will have to do a lot of heavy lifting, and now having seen the first glimpse of the movie, I'm 100% confident that Marvel is gonna give us a masterpiece. And if you have any doubts regarding this teaser that never showed us Reed's powers or Galactus' massive size, I'm gonna explain them as well. So without any further ado, let's begin our breakdown.
Welcome to the Baxter Building.
We make a point to do family dinner every week. Sunday at 7, on the dot, no matter what. We're all here.
The teaser kicks off with Sue Storm welcoming a news reporter to the iconic Baxter Building, which is the headquarters of the Fantastic Four in the comics. In the background, the skyline features some familiar sights like the Chrysler Building, with a slick, retro-futuristic look. Director Matt Shakman, who also directed WandaVision, has confirmed that this movie will take place in an alternate 1960s timeline, but with a unique, futuristic vibe. And if you take a look at the first promotional artwork published by Marvel, you'll notice that they used an old Life magazine cover featuring President Lyndon B. Johnson from December 13th, 1963. This little detail hints that the story is set around 1963 or 64. Now notice the way Reed and Sue are giving a tour of their penthouse and describing their everyday routine, almost as if they're trying to get a message across through this news reporter that they're just a normal couple even after becoming superheroes. But why would they need to do that unless there's public concern about the environment they live in? And the answer is Sue might be pregnant. And if that's the case, they're not just showing off their home, they're making a statement that their world is a safe place to raise a child. In the comics, Reed has always had this obsession with winning over the public. That's why he made their identities public. He knew that if he didn't, they'd be seen as freaks, feared, maybe even experimented on. So what did he do? He turned them into celebrities, hoping that fame and fortune would replace the normal lives they gave up. Another reason was to show unity as a family, since Ben Grimm cannot have a secret identity, so neither should the others have. Now, if you look closely at the way Sue walks, by taking long, careful steps with her shoulder leaning backwards, it's almost like she's carrying extra weight. And with today's CGI, Marvel could easily be hiding a baby bump. In the comics, Sue and Reed Richards are parents to Franklin Richards, an Omega-level mutant who can warp reality itself. He's so strong that even Galactus, the Planet Eater, fears him, which would explain why Galactus is standing inside Earth instead of devouring it. But I'll talk about it when I get there. Now, inside their penthouse, we have some clever Easter eggs. The rug has a rocky texture, just like the Thing's skin. There's a small fireplace, a reference to the Human Torch. And of course, the base of the fireplace, being thin and stretched toward the ceiling, is a nod to Reed Richards' power. The director Matt Shakman also plays around with the aspect ratio, as he did in WandaVision. In fact, in 4:3 ratio, it almost felt like I'm watching an episode taking place inside the TVA. On to the next clip.
Herbie, how's that sauce coming?
Yeah, I'll be the judge of that.
Okay. Okay, is this guy good or what? I want to add a couple cloves of garlic. Not because it's not delicious, I just want to add a little bit of zip, okay?
We see Ben cooking in the kitchen with Harvey, one of the rare characters who started in a TV show and became so popular that they made their way into the comics. First appearing in the new Fantastic Four animated series in 1978, Harvey made his comic book debut a year later in the Fantastic Four number 209. His name? Humanoid Experimental Robot B-Type Integrated Electronics. Yeah, it's a bit mouthful, but basically Reed and Master Zar built him to help track down Galactus. I like how even he's wearing an apron while cooking. Now, Ben Grimm cooking isn't new. It's happened a few times in the comics, but making Evan Moss Backrack a chef in this universe, that feels like a clever nod to his role in The Bear. Now let's talk about the Thing. Thanks to the leaked set photos, we know they're using practical effects to bring him to life, and that's why he looks so good in the teaser. Real-life references always make the final VFX renders sharper, and honestly, this might be the best the Thing has ever looked on screen. Now zoom in on Ben's right wrist. He's wearing a watch-like device, and if you look closer, you'll notice it even resembles Harvey himself. And what's Harvey's main task? To locate Galactus. And if I fast forward to the ending of the teaser, where they're all standing on the balcony of the Baxter Building, the same area that we've seen at the beginning of the teaser, where suddenly the sky erupts in fire. Notice the first thing Ben does here? He looks down at the device. So my theory is Reed has probably built some kind of an early warning system, a wearable gadget that detects Galactus or any major threats. That also explains why Reed and Sue immediately head inside, while Johnny flames up and rockets toward the chaos to investigate. On to the next clip.
T-5.
Before we went up the first time, you couldn't turn invisible. Ben wasn't a rock.
The best pilot in the world right here.
Yeah. Best looking, he means.
And Johnny never caught fire.
We see Reed working on some sort of an equation on a blackboard. I love that they went with an old school blackboard instead of some high-tech holographic display. It keeps things grounded and I'm all for it. Now notice the 3 eye-shaped windows in the background. This gives us the geographical location of where exactly Reed is. Because if you look at the Baxter Building from the outside, these windows are a major architectural feature, meaning this room is somewhere in that specific section of the tower. Now one detail that I really loved is that there are 2 blackboards here. One that is going down and the other rising up right behind it. This suggests that Reed is working on something classified. He doesn't want anyone else seeing these equations, which is why he's literally hiding it behind another blackboard. Now let's talk about what's on the board. We see 2 diagrams that look like an Einstein-Rosen bridge, also known as a wormhole. One of them even labels an entry and exit point, with an arrow showing that the exit leads to another universe. For those unfamiliar, wormholes are theoretical shortcuts through space-time, based on Einstein's field equations. Since traveling at the speed of light is impossible for humans, the next best thing would be using a wormhole to jump vast distances or even cross into a different universe. And it looks like that's exactly what Reed is working on. Now I've got 2 theories as to why he's doing this. Theory 1, this could be a callback to Tim Story's Fantastic Four, where Reed immediately started searching for a cure after the team was hit with cosmic rays.
I swear to you, I will do everything in my power. You're gonna be Ben again.
If we apply that same idea here, Reed working on a multiversal travel could mean that they're actually from Earth 616, the main MCU timeline. But when their space mission went sideways, they accidentally got transported to a different universe. And that's why Reed is now trying to get them home. Or theory 2 is that the Fantastic Four have always existed in this alternate timeline. But now with Galactus threatening to wipe out their universe, Reed is searching for a new home, a universe where they can escape and survive. In fact, if Reed is messing around with multiversal travel, he could accidentally trigger an incursion, which might just bring Dr. Doom into play. But I'll dive deeper into that at the end of the video. We then get a few shots of the team gearing up for the space launch. Now here's what you should notice. When we see the team, the footage is in 4:3, but when we cut to the rocket launch, it switches to 16:9. This suggests that any scene in 4:3 is actually a flashback, something from the past. Meanwhile, everything in 16:9 is happening in real time. In other words, these 2 shots are not part of the same sequence. Then comes this shot of Reed gently touching Sue's face. And again, the aspect ratio is 16:9. That means this scene is taking place after their first launch, after they've already gained their powers. As we can see, Reed's signature gray streaks here. And we all know he only gets them after the accident that gave them their powers. So it's pretty safe to say that although this is not an origin story, and Marvel won't exactly show us how they got their powers, but we will get flashbacks. And not just that, there's gonna be a second launch. Now notice Reed has a similar device on his wrist like Ben. Johnny is wearing the same device when we see him flaming up on the balcony. So this has to be an important device that Reed instructed everyone to wear at all times. Now notice how Sue isn't wearing a full space suit like Reed. And there are sparks inside the shuttle. That tells us something will go south, and whatever happens, it's Sue who will suffer the most since she's not wearing her spacesuit. We then see Reed and Sue having a conversation in their bedroom where Reed regrets how everything changed after that first mission. Ben wasn't a rock, Johnny never caught fire, and Sue never turned invisible. And I love this next moment, Ben in a fedora and a trench coat standing near a storefront window. Behind the glass, multiple televisions play footage of their first launch, and Ben just stares. He's watching his past self, the man he used to be, before everything changed, before he became the Thing. This moment almost reminded me of the scene where Ben couldn't pick up the engagement ring in Tim Story's Fantastic Four. Out of all 4 of them, Ben has it the worst. Also, notice that TV is on sale at Kaplan's, which is a reference to Jeff Kaplan, who's one of the writers of the film. On to the next clip.
Ben has always been a rock. Johnny is Johnny.
Hi!
And I am right here. Whatever life throws at us, we'll face it together.
Sue reassures Reed that everything is still fine. She tells him Ben has always been a rock, implying that deep down he has always had a hardened heart. Johnny has always been Johnny, and even though Sue turns invisible, she reminds Reed that she is always there beside him. Because that's who Sue Storm is, the heart of the Fantastic Four. Johnny is always wild, Ben is always grim, Reed is always lost in his work, but it's Sue who keeps them together, keeps them grounded, keeps them motivated. And by saying this to Reed, she cements her role as the emotional core of the team, just like in the comics. Then we see Johnny flaming on in broad daylight, shooting straight up into space. This could be the moment he first discovers he can fly, or maybe he's chasing something that's threatening the planet. But he stops accelerating at one point, and we see vapor coming out of his body. So just like Tony Stark's first flight in Iron Man 1, Johnny might discover even he has limits. But what I find interesting is that even though he was completely engulfed in flames a few moments ago, his clothes still remain intact. This implies that this iteration of Reed is even more brilliant and intelligent than we've seen him previously, because other iterations of Reed were only able to create suits that would adapt with their powers. But Pedro Pascal's Reed seems to have invented regular-looking clothes that still adapt to their powers, eliminating the need for separate uniforms. Then we see Sue fully suited up in her Fantastic Four costume, wearing the same device on her wrist as everyone else. Now let's talk about her powers and how comic accurate it looks over here. In the comics, Sue can bend all wavelengths of visible, infrared, and ultraviolet light around her. An observer unaware of Sue's ability to bend light like this would have the sensation of seeing through her, therefore making her invisible. She can also manipulate light to turn objects invisible layer by layer. She can even turn people blind by rendering their retinas invisible, and most importantly create solid, impenetrable force fields. Through sheer concentration, she can shape these force fields into shields, barriers, and even offensive weapons. And the size of a given force field is limited by her ability to imagine. In other words, the more she concentrates and imagines, the more powerful she gets. And in this shot, we see exactly that. Sue projecting a force field where she is literally bending light. And I love the VFX choice here. Instead of a generic blue energy blast, they went with a full light spectrum, giving her powers a distinct and unique look. Now in the background, there's debris all over the road, and it seems like one of the columns of the monorail got damaged. So this could be a scene where the team rescues civilians from a derailing monorail. We can also spot the Fantastic car in the background with the doors opened. But if you look closely, you will see two figures in blue suits moving near the Fantastic car. That's probably Reed and Johnny, handling the other side of the situation. On to the final clip.
As a family.
We get a much clearer look at the Fantastic car before cutting to Johnny soaring past some buildings. Now I don't know why, but something about this shot feels off. Almost like Marvel removed something or someone. And if I had to guess, it could be the Silver Surfer. We already know the character will be played by Julia Garner, and the way Johnny is flying here, it really looks like he's chasing someone. So take this with a grain of salt, but Marvel might have edited out Silver Surfer from this scene for this teaser. Now if you're wondering why they changed the gender of Silver Surfer, well, they didn't. In the comics, Norrin Radd becomes the Silver Surfer, agreeing to serve as Galactus' herald in exchange for sparing his homeworld and saving the life of his lover, Shalabal. But in the film, instead of Norrin Radd, it's Shalabal who takes on the mantle of Silver Surfer. So that means the original Silver Surfer, aka Norrin Radd, could still exist somewhere in the main MCU timeline. However, there's a slight possibility that we might see both of them as Silver Surfer in this film, as happened in 1999's Earth X. In the Twisted Future version of the Marvel Universe, Norrin bestows a potion of his power onto Shala, and the two serve as the twin heralds of Galactus. And in this twisted timeline, a hyper-evolved Franklin Richards is Galactus. Then we see the Thing sprinting through a road filled with debris. This could be part of the same sequence where we saw Sue projecting her powers. Next, we get a glimpse of John Malkovich playing a mysterious character. Now, rumors suggest that he could be playing Mole Man or Red Ghost. But there's another character from the comics who fits his look perfectly, and that is Boris. In the comics, Boris was a close friend of Werner Von Doom, Victor Von Doom's father. When Werner died, Boris swore to look after Victor. His true mission is not just to protect him, but to protect the world from Victor. He encouraged Victor to follow in his father's footsteps, to use his genius for healing rather than destruction. But Victor ignored his advice and instead became the infamous Dr. Doom. But despite everything, Boris remained Doom's most loyal servant. In fact, Boris is the only living person Doom really cares about. Doom has even called him, and I quote, the one man man I called a friend. And let's be real, this is a Fantastic Four movie, and there's no Fantastic Four without Dr. Doom. So if I had to bet, John Malkovich is playing Boris, not Red Ghost or Mole Man. Now imagine this, the post-credit scene rolls. Two of the greatest actors in Hollywood, Robert Downey Jr. as Dr. Doom, and John Malkovich as Boris sharing the screen together, setting up Avengers Doomsday for all of us. Just imagine how insane that moment would be. And then we get the money shot of the trailer, Galactus himself, standing over Manhattan, looming over the city like a cosmic force of nature. Now Ralph Ineson is bringing Galactus to life, and if you've heard his voice, you already know he's the perfect casting.
Exhibition he does, where he's got the young office junior that he's trying to pull. And
now, if you look closely, you'll see the Baxter Building in the background. Now, Marvel only gives us the back of Galactus' head here, but even from this one shot, we get a pretty good idea of how he'll look in the film. And thank God, gone are the days when Galactus was just a floating cloud because of the CGI budget constraints. This time, we're getting the real deal. But some people are still asking, why does Galactus look so small compared to his comic counterpart? Well, let me tell you something. Galactus can change his size according to his needs. So the real question isn't how big he is, it's why he is this size. If Galactus was simply here to consume Earth, he would have just done it. Instead, he shrinks himself to walk the streets of New York. So there has to be a reason, and that could be Franklin Richards. In Fantastic Four number 520, Galactus personally comes to Earth not to destroy it, but to turn Franklin Richards into one of his heralds. Why? Because Franklin Richards is insanely powerful. And I think that's exactly what's happening in this movie. Now in the comics, before Galactus arrives, he sends his herald, the Silver Surfer, to warn planets of his arrival. And when the Silver Surfer arrives, the planet's atmosphere erupts in flames as a sign of his presence. And that could be the fire we see in this shot. And if Marvel is really sticking close to the source material, this could also open the doors for Uatu, aka the Watcher. Because in the comics, when the Silver Surfer reached Earth and disturbed its atmosphere, the Watcher actually intervened to help the Fantastic Four. Now let's talk about Galactus' design here. He looks incredible. There are so many intricate details, textures on his helmet, layers of cosmic armor, and those faint blue lights glowing across his body. And here's something important to remember. Galactus appears differently to different beings. His power is so vast that mortal minds can't fully comprehend his true form. Therefore, what we see is what our minds can handle. And then there's his helmet. Not just a design choice, but this thing serves a purpose. It helps him contain the massive cosmic energy inside him. Yes, Galactus can remove his helmet, and he has done in the comics, but when he does, it's usually inside his spaceship, which is also designed to keep his power contained. Galactus is one of the few Marvel characters that has looked the same since day one. Because, well, why change perfection? Then the last shot of the teaser shows us the Fantastic Four in their classic blue and white suits, with 7 arrows pointing at them. This set design is actually a reference to the Beatles. It's a cool way to reinforce the idea that the Fantastic Four are Marvel's first family, just like the Beatles were the Fab Four of music.
Hello, Stephen. Fantastic Four. Didn't you guys chart in the 60s?
And notice how all of them have blue and white in their suits, but Reed's suit is mostly blue with only white gloves. This slight variation highlights his role as the team's leader, a small but a meaningful touch.
Which one of you is the leader? That would be me. No, seriously.
Honestly, I'm more excited for this film than Captain America Brave New World or Thunderbolts. For me, Fantastic Four were one of the first Marvel characters I ever learned about, so there's definitely a nostalgia factor here. And I still can't believe we're getting a Superman movie and a Fantastic Four movie in the same month. What a time to be alive, eh? But now I want to hear from you lads. Did I miss any hidden details or Easter eggs? Comment below and let me know. And you know I read all comments. Now if you enjoyed this breakdown, give me a thumbs up, grab the subscribe button and turn notifications on. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter to get updates about my videos. Till then, I'll see you lads in the next one.